So let's get started. So good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this seminar of the series we hear from the ECLT network. Today I have the particular privilege of introducing today's speaker, who is Professor Luc Steels from ICREA, the Catalan Institute for Research and Advanced Study in Barcelona, as well as ECLT fellow. Of course, Professor Steels needs no introductions, but for the few of you who don't know him, let me just mention that he started his career. He was educated at university first in linguistics at the University of Antwerp in Belgium, and then he moved to MIT, to study computer science under the guidance of Marvin Minsky, who is one of the legendary figures in artificial intelligence, recipient of the Turing Medal award, as well as well known to the general public for being the scientific supervisors of Kubrick's movies 2001 Space Odysseys. And then after he got his PhD, then he returned to Europe and established a series of labs, and he started a brilliant career, first in Brussels, then in Paris, then in Barcelona, and now he's at ICREA. So he has been a PI of many projects, some of which, of course, are still running and ongoing within ECLTs, that as you might have seen it. And he was a chair of a countless number of conferences, boards, evaluation committees, and so on. But most of all for us, he has been a reference point in the field, and we are particularly grateful for him for this. So that said, let me thank again Luc for having accepted our invitations, and please, Luc, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much for this kind introduction. I should also like to add that one of the things that I'm very proud of in my life is that I was a member of the founding board of ECLT long time ago. And I still remember, the first hours of ECLT in its previous location. And so it's always been a very exciting institution. Okay, so I would like to mention also before I start my talk that to acknowledge a number of people that have helped me in the experiments that I'm going to talk about today. I particularly want to mention Sinem Aslan, who many of you know because she was also connected to ECLT at some point in time. So what are we going to talk about? Well, AI is in the news, and I've been in doing AI research for a long time. In fact, I think my first paper was almost 50 years ago. And there's at the moment a kind of hype, I would say, or you could also call it a lot of enthusiasm, which is fine. But this poses the question how far AI is really advanced compared to human intelligence. Are we there yet, or what is going to happen at the moment or in the near future? So this is topic number one. And then a lot of people say, oh yes, AI can do incredible things for very specific topics, and this is true. We would like to have more general forms of intelligence, which is a challenge. And then also people ask, what about creativity? Isn't this a capacity of the human mind which is beyond computers? And so this is the second topic. We're going to reflect on that. Now, I'm going to put my cards on the table, so to speak, right from the beginning. And personally, I think that we are still far removed from human intelligence, in particular with the questions of meaning and understanding. If you look at AI as it is practiced today, it usually happens by circumventing meaning. And this gives rise to a number of issues. Circumvent, I mean, if you take translation, for example, as you find it in Google Translate, well, I can assure you that this program who is doing that has no clue about what you're talking about. You know, it is translating patterns, words and patterns from one language to another, but it is not trying to really understand what you have written. And then from that understanding, reconstructing a text in another language. And the same is true for image understanding and for all the other fields. And this gives rise to a surprising behavior sometimes and a lack of robustness. And also to, I would say, possibly situations that may be dangerous, particularly if you're talking about AI applications that play a role in, let's say, diagnosis or in self-driving cars and things like that. So this is one thing. And with respect to creativity, I'm going to argue that this is also very much out of reach for current AI. And so the real question is, well, what's the problem, you know, and can we do something about it? Now, the approach that I've been following lately, this is quite recent work, is to look at art. And art is, of course, a domain in which everybody agrees that creativity is involved. And so I'm interested to look at both the creation and also the interpretation of artworks, because the, you know, creativity is not only the author, let's say, the painter or the composer, but it's also the viewer or the listener that has to involve, you know, put himself into the, do things with his mind in order to experience and understand the artwork. And these things are also creative. So the question is, how do these processes, meaning creation and interpretation, how do they work? This is the question that AI always asks. Can we make a mechanistic model of these processes? And the second one is, you know, how can we push the limits, particularly with respect to meaning and understanding? Now, we can talk for hours about what is art. And so I'm not really going to put up a definition, but maybe we can look at an example. And the example I picked here is a painting from Caravaggio. I think, you know, most people would agree that this is an example of art. Now, if you look at this painting, then there are many levels to look at and many levels of meaning, actually. So at first, obviously, you see blobs of colored surfaces. You see some that have more, are more bright than others. You see certain lines, you know, like this particular line here. So there's a sort of a first level, you could say the sensorial level, the purely perception, pure perception, and you can already have artworks that just explore that level without really going further. But I mean, when we look more, then we start to see certain structures, certain motives, certain parts, and very quickly we try to recognize the factual meanings that are here. You know, we see people, we see hands here, faces, you know, and we begin to see that this is probably a soldier, and here is another soldier, and this person is giving a kiss to this person. This person here is kind of shouting out, and so on. So we see a scene, we see a situation, and very quickly also, particularly if you look at the title of this work, which is Presa di Cristo nell'orto, you begin to realize that this is a scene from the Bible where Judas is actually giving a kiss to Jesus, and he's being arrested by soldiers. And this person is undoubtedly one of the apostles who is screaming, you know. And so we start giving a historical interpretation, putting this situation as part of a narrative, which is of great importance in the religion that has produced this painting. We see many other things. We see here a person that is holding a lamp, for example. And if we go further, then we start seeing cultural references. For example, this person here happens to be Caravaggio himself. Now, you cannot know that, but if you know more about Caravaggio and other paintings, then you realize that he put himself into the painting. So you get a kind of meta level, you know, where he is observing what is going on. And in fact, there are other paintings also where he put himself as one of the people that are visible. And so the motivation of this, which is another level of meaning, is really about, you could say, spiritual matters and belief systems in which this is part telling a particular story. And so if we look at all this, then we see that if we talk about meaning, then meaning is not just one thing. Meaning happens at many different levels. And I give here the list of levels that Panofsky, a famous art historian, you know, he put names to these different levels. And it is clear that if we talk about interpretation or experience of artworks, that we have to take many different levels into account. So this is a first observation. And this is not only true for paintings, but it's also true for music, for example. I give another example here. This is from Bach, from the Matthäus-Passion. And it's actually the same scene, you know. Here you have Judas here, who says, "Gegrüßet seist du, Rabbi," meaning you are welcome, Rabbi, and he kisses him. But Jesus tells him, "Mein Freund, my friend, why did you come?" And then the evangelist says, they go towards him, put their hands on him, and then arrest him. Now, in the case of Bach, so it's the same theme, it's the same scene, actually, but all this is told in a very calm way, actually. And this goes on if you go further, you know, this is like a reflection, although now and then the choir of believers comes in and almost shouts, "Lasst ihn halten, bindet nicht, leave him, stop it, don't take him." But what's interesting in Bach, and I want to let you hear a small fragment to illustrate this, is then sort of the emotion, if you want, is coming right after that, with a description of the thunder and the lightning that happened right after the taking of a prisoner, which is also in the Bible. And so I'm going to let you hear it, but you just, I want to say a few things first, which is that, you know, it starts in the bass to say there's lightning and thunder in the clouds. You know, you see Blitz, Donner, Blitz. You see also there's actually two choirs, because Bach was playing with the spatialization so that the sound would come from different corners of the church, I guess. And so you see also here, this is a piano reduction, but you can see here the agitation that's happening in the bass line, you know, and this piece builds up more and more. It's actually a figurative illustration of the thunder and the lightning that's happening. So I propose that we listen to this particular piece. So you first hear a bit this calm singing, and then it starts. Okay. Sorry, I lost my, yes. So you see that in music, you actually have the same sort of thing. I mean, you have these different levels. There's a material level of the sounds, but there's also the figurative level of the situation that is being recreated. You obviously get this expressive level, you know, the difference between the slow singing that happened just before and then this thunder that it is happening. And it is embedded in the cultural and the motivational level, just as in painting. And I could give other examples, you know, in literature or in opera, or it's always this kind of complex web of levels of meaning. Okay, now I'm going to give a third example. This is the last example that I'm going to give in the first part of this talk. This is another musical example. And it is from a composer, Richard Strauss. This is 20th century. And this is a piece called Vier letzte Lieder, which means the four last songs. And specifically one called Im Abendrot, which means the, you know, the orange sun that is going under. And so this is written by Strauss when he was a few months before he died, actually. And these are the words of the song. I'm not going to go into all of these details, but I just wanted to show this example also to give us background here. And basically, it's a poem by Joseph von Eichendorff, which uses the metaphor of walking as a way to go towards life and then coming at the end of life. And so we're just going to look at a very small section here, which is this one. I'll translate. So it is around us, rings die Täler neigen. Around us, there are valleys that are bowing, as dunkelt schon die Luft. So the air is getting dark, and two larks are soaring upwards, dreaming in the air. So this is the image, actually, that in this music, it's called a tone poem by Strauss, is being evoked, you know. And as the sun is going under the valley here, these mountains are bowing, so to speak. I mean, they are neigen, because they are darker. They're getting darker before the top of the mountains are getting darker. And so, so this is the image. And again, we can talk a lot about this thing, but just to illustrate again the incredible depth of artistic works that can be created not only in painting but also in music here. And you know, I'm going to just have this this part. I will let you listen to it, but you can already see, even if you cannot read music, you can see here this line going down. And this is Täler neigen, es dunkelt schon die Luft, you know. And actually, you will not only hear this downward movement, but you will also hear that the tonality is changing on the word Luft as a kind of things coming down. What you will also hear is a flute, two flutes, in fact. This is enlarged here. You know, this kind of flute is beginning right after Luft. And these are, of course, the two larks that are beginning to sing. and so they anticipate then the second phrase here, two larks nur noch steigen, going up in the air. So let me show that example here also, or let you hear this example. It's very short, only one line. So I hope you heard this dunkel schon die Luft, and then the larks coming up. And so this is another example, and actually we need a bit of terminology here, because like this, the larks here singing, this is a part of the musical phrasing that's going on. And in semiotics, this is called a signifier. A signifier is like an element which carries meaning. So, in paintings, you have all sorts of signifiers which are part of the painting, but also in music, you get it. And of course, you get a signifier, and then you get what it means, what is called the signified or the signification. And usually there's some sort of code to go from the signifier to the signified. So if you're interpreting an artwork or a musical work, you have to be sensitive to the presence of these signifiers. You have to detect them somehow. But then also you have to, I mean, we cannot resist to seek for meaning, to try to find out what they are. So in the case of this flute here, it's not just a flute because the composer liked to have a flute there. It is really related to these larks that are going up into the sky. And the theory of semiotics, they also make a distinction between denotation and connotation, whereas the denotation is the lark itself. But then the connotation, which is actually maybe even more important if in the context of artworks, are all sorts of things that we associate with a particular signifier. And in the case of larks, this is about a soul rising after death, freedom from embodiment, being a messenger of the gods, love, the beginning of a new day. These are all things that are traditionally in literature, poetry, but also in paintings, in music, are associated with larks. And so all of this is not arbitrary. These are choices for metaphors, for associations that are symbolic, which are part of the culture, let's say, if you want to know that or experience it. And you could say, well, who knows these things these days? But actually, this is for the younger audience here. If you have a tattoo, maybe some of you have, the lark is a very common symbol, actually, in tattoos for all these kinds of connotations. And this is an example here. You see the lark escaping from a cage to illustrate this freedom from embodiment as a soul rising, but also in many cases as a sign of love. And so these things is not just in let's say culture, but also in popular culture, you have all these connotations just as well. Okay, now finally, to end my introduction here, so we've seen meaning is in fact a web at many different levels, and you have this transition from signifiers to signified, which add the signified significations are meanings that are added at all these different levels. And so if we talk about creativity, we actually have to see creativity from 2 points of view, from that of the viewer and that of the creator. And so, as I've been trying to illustrate, you know, a piece of art is powerful if it, when you look at it, you get visual experiences, and there's a process of interpretation that starts spinning this web of meanings. Now, we can ask already, can AI systems help to produce art objects? I mean, and then I would say yes. There are, in fact, already many examples of it. But most of the work is done partly by the person who used AI to produce the art object, I would say. I mean, she or he is the one that has the motivations and puts it in a certain context and uses source material to then maybe use an AI algorithm to manipulate or to transform the input objects. But most of the work, I would say, is done by the viewer. You know, but because a viewer will seek meaning, will seek patterns, even if they are not there, or try to interpret, impose meaning on an object, even if the creation of the object did not intend that kind of meaning. Now, if you ask me whether AI systems today can actually interpret art in the way that I was doing until now, then here I would have to disappoint you, because I don't think this is possible today. Although I'm going to show examples where we are trying to do this, and this way understand more about this interpretation process and about the meanings that go into this artwork. Now, if we look from the viewpoint of the author, one way to look at an artist, I mean, the artists themselves don't like this kind of comparison, but is to think of the artist as a kind of cognitive engineer, you know, a specialist who knows a lot intuitively about how people react to paintings or to sounds, what people know, what they care about, what are big issues, and then kind of wrapping all that up and creating an object that pulls all these things together. And so this is actually extraordinary. If you think, I mean, the examples that I've shown you or let you hear, it is just extraordinary, like the orchestra. We didn't look in much detail, but Strauss, you know, there's I don't know, 20 or so, 25 different instruments involved, which all have symbolic meaning, actually. Like this going down towards Luft is part of the fagot. The bassoons played a very important role, and you know, also for the flutes play a particular role, and even more important, the tonality and all these structures. It is just unbelievable, almost, that a person can make these kinds of things. Now, again, we can ask, can AI systems help in the creative process? And I really think so. They can help in many ways. I mean, if you write music, and I do that now and then, the systems, AI systems, can help a lot. For example, in transposition, or in you know, enforcing constraints on the ranges of instruments, or transposing from one tonality to another, and so on. So I really think that is the case. But if you ask me whether the AI systems themselves are creative, then I would have quite serious doubts. Not if we think in terms of the creation of meanings, you know, starting from motivations and from topics, and then translating that into an artwork. Moreover, it's not just, there's a lot of attempts now in AI to create different artworks, but they usually, they have a grammar, a template, and then they use some random generators to fill in parts of this template. And it used to be that these templates were built by hand, you know, like the grammar of the sonata, let's say. But these days, there's a lot of attempts using neural networks to first learn the templates. For example, give all the cantatas of Bach and then extract statistical patterns and then create a new pattern. But this is done by filling in the slots within these templates and making random choices so that it doesn't is not exactly the same as the models that have been used. But in my view, this has very little to do with this expression of meaning and all these levels of meaning that are present when we talk about artworks. I mean, human-made artworks. So this is the first part of my talk. And now I'm going to turn to the second part, which is about a case study. Okay, let me check on the time. Okay, so I'm going to discuss a case study that I've been doing the past year. And here I have to acknowledge also funding from the STARTS program of the European Commission, which allowed me to work together with a painter called Luc Steels. And maybe some of you have heard of him, but he's a Flemish contemporary painter. Well, let's say he's among the top artists today, particularly for figurative painting. And so this is from the Palazzo Grassi, where there was an exhibition called La Pelle in last year, and well, 2019-2020. And so this is a solo exhibition by Luc Steels. And so maybe some of you have seen it. It was a remarkable exhibition. You walk in and you have this monumental palazzo, you know, and then you go up the stairs. And then there's the first painting here. And this is the painting that I'm going to talk about. So this painting is called Secrets. It's not a big painting. It's, 52 by 37 centimeters. And when you look at this painting, well, obviously you see the face of a man. The eyes are closed. And yeah, this could be all sorts of things. Maybe this person is at rest or is reflecting. Now, the title Secrets already indicates that there is something else going on, that this person may be hiding secrets or contemplating secrets. And if you look at the catalog, because this is also interesting, because in the catalog, the title and the catalog usually gives you various cues that trigger the, let's say, meaning creation process in the viewer. And in this case, the catalog starts with the sentence, "The closed off inward-looking face of secrets is in fact that of Albert Speer." Now, I guess most of you know Albert Speer vaguely. I mean, he's one of the Nazi criminals, let's say, that played a very big role in the Second World War. And so the secrets, there is, as is often the case in the paintings by Luc Steels, there's a sort of, switch in the way that you look at this painting. I mean, something that looked perhaps benign at first, then becomes something with a double level, let's say, a level that leads to all sorts of reflections on what is happening. So I'm going to quickly show efforts that I've been doing with some other people to let's say not simulate but emulate a kind of interpretation process using AI algorithms. And the results of this were shown recently in an exhibition in Vocale, which is the biggest cultural center in Belgium, in Brussels. And so in the exhibition, we had the original work, but then also videos and dialogues which I had with Tuymans and explanations. Then you see here projections of the visual processing that we carried out, and also of the, you could say, semantic processing, you know, going to meaning, trying to understand all these levels of cultural and other meanings. And so I don't have time to really discuss everything that we did, because I think we used something like 50 different AI algorithms to look at this painting. And I'll just give you a little taste of some of the challenges that we tried to deal with. And the first one has to do with finding the source of the image, because almost, well, not all paintings, but many paintings, including Caravaggio, for example, they have a certain source. Well, the source can, of course, be real objects in the world, but often they are earlier paintings, or they are photographs of paintings. And if we have the source, then we can study the artistic methods of the painter. We can, by looking how we transformed the source in order to arrive at the painting. So this is an attempt to probe the artistic method, let's say. Now, there are a number of ways in which you can try to find the source, and so we tried different ones. Actually, now the many search engines, they have a reverse image search facility, and so this is the result of that for secrets. So this means you give secrets as input, the image, and then these are other images that are considered by the Google algorithm to be similar. Now, what is used by many of these search engines is a combination of, let's say, symbolic information, like in this case, the name Luc Steels, but also using computer vision, convolutional neural networks, and deep learning in order to build up statistical models and use those models in order to come up to compute a similarity. Now, the interesting thing is that most of these are actually paintings by Tuymans, but it does not include the original, the source, which we are looking for. And this is another search engine, Yandex, which is a Russian, the main Russian search engine. And you see, again, you start from secrets, and you see in this case that it's mostly based on visual features. You know, like the hollow eyes that you also see in the painting, or it's the face of a man, you know, and this is an example from a Chinese search engine. I mean, they use similar techniques, but they get very different results because the data that you're using comes from their culture. And you see here, for example, a Buddha, you know, with the eyes closed. So this is one possible interpretation of that this is reflecting a person. So, but the main point is that using these techniques, you don't actually find back the source. And so another way is to use keywords. And this is, we use from the catalog because it says it's the face of Albert Speer. So if you use that, then you also get a whole set of images of Albert Speer. And here indeed, you see that this is beginning to look like the painting, right? And so this is clearly the source of this particular painting. Now, how do we find it? Actually, you have to, again, many algorithms and techniques that try to compare two images to see that they are similar. And one of those techniques consists in determining key points in the image and then try to construct a mapping between the two. But you see here that this does not really work very well. In some cases like this maps onto this, so you could say, okay, the eyebrow here, but most of the other lines, it's a little bit random how they connect. And there are properties apparently to paintings, so that this particular technique, which is used a lot actually, is just not working in this case. So, which may be an explanation why the search engines do not find back the original. And this is another experiment done by CNEM actually. It's more an evolutionary algorithm, which means that you have a number of operators that transform the painting, for example, scaling, rotation, translation, and you try to get closer and closer to the painting. So your cost function is related to the difference between the source and the painting, and then you see that the artist has actually transformed. You see the ears, you see that there's a section, actually there's turning of the section. So we are beginning to see differences that the artist has introduced in going from the source to the painting. Now we continued further with this kind of mapping, because then we can do many other things once we have a good mapping from source to painting. Now another thing that you discover is that actually this image is a section from that image, and the artist removed all the references, iconic direct references to Nazism from the painting, in order to make this figure, let's say, more abstract or less, so that the meanings are not only about this particular person, hiding secrets, but as a more kind of universal stand. You see, even this part is taken away, and the only indication that this is a military uniform is this particular line here. Okay, so this is one example. Here is another example about a focal point. And what painters do is they introduce, well, they sort of try to guide your gaze, and there's always in a painting a particular point, which is where you focus on when you first look at the painting. And so this is an example from another painting by Tuymans, which was also in the Palazzo Grassi exhibition. In fact, we looked at all the paintings in this La Pelle exhibition. And so this is a painting called The Valley. And this is the, when you look at it, you spontaneously first look at the eyes. And again, there are quite a few algorithms. There's a few here and the results of them who try to find the saliency in an image. This is the, it should be MSI algorithm. And these are other algorithms. And so the MSI algorithm, which is the one that we used here, is a neural network algorithm. Using various layers with different functions. And basically it is the data that has been used to train this algorithm is data about human eye movement. So using, measuring the movement of eyes where people look at when they spontaneously look the first time at an image. And so progressively a statistical model has been built of human eye gaze. And so this is the model that we then apply here to the painting. Now, interestingly, you see that in the previous example, that when you look at the face, you typically look at the eyes. And indeed, when you look at the, in this case, this algorithm looks at the source. It is first focusing on the eye, and specifically on the right side here, I guess partly because of this black area which is near the eye. But on the painting, actually the focus goes not directly to the eyes, but to the middle of the face. And this is interesting, and actually Damien told me that he deliberately wanted to have the focal point, you know, towards in the middle of the eye, in order to have this let's say this description of a closed-off face, which is also mentioned in the catalog. In fact, you know, this you could say is an open face, is looking outward, whereas here it's closed off. So you see that the focal point is already one of the devices, one of the signifiers that the painter is using to influence your gaze and to let's say convey meanings, not explicitly by sort of iconic relationships, but by using color and shape and the brightness in particular, you know, to influence the way that you're looking at. Here is another example. This is about finding signifiers, because really what the interpretation process, I mean, in the case of language, obviously words are signifiers. So we know that already, even though in language it is possible that certain features of the phonetic form, like the tone, can be a signifier, can be carrier of meaning, or it can not be. You know, in Chinese you have different tones. I mean, the pitch, differences in pitch, and they can be meaningful. So the same word sounds for us the same, but for a Chinese speaker, it is a signifier, the pitch, I mean. So one way to experiments that we've done, this is again with Sina, is clustering the image and using a quite well-known k-means clustering algorithm to find, let's say, the main colors. And you can define here, you can say, I want 5, and then it will find the 5 colors. Now, I should say that we are looking here at digital, you know, images, which are quite different from the real images. So it's a little bit misleading. But and these are the 5. Here is the palette that is used here. And one thing that you can do is then redraw or recolor the painting using a particular palette, let's say. So, and this here is the repainting of the original using this reduced palette of 5 colors. And what's interesting about it is that, you know, there's certain features that you see much better, or that maybe you didn't see at all when you first looked at this. For example, this kind of mustache-like area here, or the nostrils or the eyebrows. And so when we start doing, when we try to identify regions of interest, we can compare again the clustered, well, I should say redrawn, original redrawn painting, in order to identify regions that are different and therefore could deliberately have been introduced by the painter in order to, you know, to express certain meanings. I say they could be because it's of course possible that, you know, there's some reason why they are different without any particular purpose. And so here, this is another example, is to try interpret signifiers that have been found. And so we've done some experiments with Open Face, which is a platform basically of AI algorithms that is all about face. And so what it is doing is detection of a face in an image, detecting what are called landmarks. These are points in a face that can be different, that can be controlled, estimating the eye gaze, the direction of looking, the head pose estimation, and then based on all these kinds of things, you know, trying to recognize which parts of the face have been moved, and then this stuff is used in several applications, but one of them is emotion recognition. And so we have used, we have applied that to this painting, and you can see here the eye gaze is going downward, whereas if you look at the original, the eye gaze is actually more looking out. And so you see again by comparing the source and the painting, that this helps us to identify and to find the significance. And so this is about inward looking and outward looking, which are again things that are described also in the catalog. I'm going to stop with this because I think you can see the idea, right? And you can do pattern recognition, you can do semantic labeling or use semantic labeling. And so, for example, detecting the eyelids that are closed, and the orange here is in the original picture, and this is the detection of closed eyelids in the painting. And so there are some things that are very clear and very clearly visible, and then you can associate various emotions with that. Okay, now I think I should start rounding off here. I just want to mention the last point, and maybe in my view the most important point, is that with all this material, what I'm trying to do then is to put it all in one interpretive network, which I call a narrative network. And so this is the network that is being part of the network for secrets. And you see here the images and the pattern recognition that has been done on them. But you also see these various concepts like looking inward, tight-lipped, closed eyelids, sunken eyes. And the idea is that this network builds up progressively and dynamically as part of the interpretation process. And so this first, I showed you only actually the visual processing, but there's also the semantic processing, in which these days a lot of semantic sources are online, dictionaries, thesauri, knowledge graphs. I mean, like the Wikipedia, for example, is completely formalized into a system called Wikidata, which you can query by, there are APIs and you can query them and get information, for example, about Albert Speer or about Tuymans, or the historical reasons, or the Palazzo Grassi and all these things. And so using this dialogue between this network, which is growing, and all these different sources, you can extend this narrative network in the direction of the conceptual, of the other levels of meaning that have more to do with the historical context or the cultural aspects. Okay, I don't think, well, this is part of this network, actually, and I don't have time to really go into that clip, but you see, this is demonstrating the progressive building of this network as more nodes come in, and the dialogue with these semantic resources is evolving. You get the images, their interpretation, and so on. And if you see, this is already later, then it's not only about the visual features of the image. After a while, it starts to explore the title secrets and the figure of Speer, and then the exhibition La Pelle and other works that are in this exhibition. And La Pelle is the name of a film, which is based on a book by Curzio Malaparte about the basically World War II and moral decay. And so this is how this whole network is expanding. Okay, so conclusions. I think it's pretty clear that we can use AI to emulate or study both the artistic methods of the painter, as I've shown, but also the artistic interpretation process, because we cannot talk about creativity in arts when we don't look both at the creation and at the interpretation, which is also creative. Although I think we can do a lot, when we actually try to do this for real, then you realize that the state of the art is still far removed from our own power and richness of being able to interpret these artworks. And obviously, that there's no truth here, right? Every viewer will build up another network. And there are factors that sometimes you focus on one thing and not on another thing. So there's not a claim that we are going to simulate exactly how a person would interpret, but it's really the whole process which is interesting and illuminating. Now, the creation of new artworks, I think, is even more a challenge, right? I mean, then we would have to start from such a transient narrative network like the one I've shown, but probably even much bigger. And then to distill out of all this material to come up with a painting. I mean, this is an incredible activity of the human mind, of which we do not understand a lot. And so I think in order to approach this with AI can help us to understand it, but to make the claim that some people actually made, that AI is now so far advanced that the super intelligence is going to happen soon, and that we are on the verge of computers that are now more creative or as creative as humans, I think is a bit of a ridiculous proposition. Anyway, I apologize for talking a little bit too much, but at least I'm within an hour. Thank
you very much. In fact, let me give a virtual clap on behalf of the whole attendees. And I'm really grateful because this is a very fascinating topic, and I'm happy that this seminar is being recorded. In fact, I will be sharing this with a few friends that I know that they could not make it to this talk. So I see that there are some questions. Are there questions? If there are questions, please unmute yourself and ask the questions. Yes, John has a question. Please, John.
John has a question.
Yes. Yeah, Luc, terrific stuff. I felt like I was sitting beside the fireside, listening to my grandfather explain how life works. It's amazing. My questions are twofold. One is the human bias issue. I noticed in your analysis, maybe for lack of time or whatever, but you concentrated on the analysis of secrets. You concentrated on the face, and I picked up two clues in the background that the curtains and the blocked door, which are both also sort of symbolic for the secretiveness, which didn't seem to be picked out by the facial algorithms, of course. And that's about domain specificity, I guess, of current AI tools and the lack of sort of overarching tools which combine things. So that's more a comment. But the question is, you started off by saying that the artist has to somehow have a model of the viewer and the interpreters in order to sort of encode the artwork appropriately. And just led by your analysis, in which essentially more or less like Google and Wikipedia, one's trying to assemble the entire body of human experience, and contrasting that with the artist presumably does not try to model the viewer, as an omniscient, all knowledge viewer, but has to deal with the limitations of the particular things that viewers are likely to know, and or common knowledge, sub knowledge, and have to deal with that. And obviously the Nazi phenomena is very common, and so that's an acceptable subject. But if it was you know, some earthquake which happened in Burma that would be less accessible to the public, then it would be accessible to Google, but not to all individuals. And so the question is about the role of the personal experience of individuals versus global Google knowledge in this whole endeavor.
Yeah, thank you very much for this point. Indeed, it's obvious that each of us, we have our own personal dynamic memory, which is a semantic memory, episodic memory, you know, which is based on our lifelong experiences. And so when we are looking at an artwork, each of us is going to see it in a different way. And now Google or a lot of AI actually pretends to be the universal way of looking at things, but actually, you know, this is not possible. You know, because there's always a perspective, a point of view, a moral judgment on actions which are different. So I think in this case, even though we consult, we ask questions to let's say Wikipedia, you know, and then get answers that get fed to this transitive network, this narrative network. I think in the future, we will need to accept that there are different artificial agents which have different personal experiences, I mean, dynamic memories. And so it will be like people that they have, we can ask a person in, what was it, Burma, or, you know, on the Papua New Guinea, we can ask questions and we will get very
Myanmar
different
is
answers.
the current term, but yeah.
Yeah, so this is, I think, a little bit of, how would I call it, arrogance or hubris, you know, of AI to say we are we have the universal knowledge, but in fact, this is, knowledge is always biased, and the cultural context, whether it is Caravaggio or it is now Tuymans, you know, is different, and different audiences will get different things. So I also would like to say it's not that the painter consciously needs to make a model of the viewer, you know, because that's part of his or her, let's say, art, you know, practice. A lot of things are intuitive, but the painter, well, I had a lot of discussions with Tuymans, and it's remarkable how articulate he can be about why a particular thing is there, just like a composer. When you ask about a particular note, you know, the composer will be able to say why that note is there and why you cannot move it up or down a half tone, you know, in that position. And so there's this romantic idea about the artists in sort of, I don't know, after drinking many bottles of, I don't know what, you know, making the ultimate artwork. But actually, when you talk with top artists, you find that they are very conscious of their methods and not explicitly modeling, but they are themselves viewers. So they look at their painting and they will do something and then say, this is not going in the right way. I need to do this in another way, and they will repaint. Okay.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Two other additional questions. The first one is from Maria. Maria, please.
Yes, thank you. First of all, yes, thank you for your talk. Really enjoyed, really fascinating topic, and also these examples very clear. So, well, I really loved it. Just a question regarding the probable cultural dependence of interpretation. So I was thinking, for example, of the example of Strauss and others with the descending melodic lines and so on. I was wondering if AI could be helpful not only to analyze some symbolic and cultural references, but also some cross-modality effects. Because, for example, this idea of association between like movement, space, like movement of musical patterns and choices, specific musical textures and so on. So maybe this could be something more general than just a cultural reference, something like hidden in our biology, that which is like found in several cultures, just not only one.
Yeah, certainly. But I think in music, I mean, there are obvious. You can imagine universal, signifiers and things associated with. For example, just making music very loud or very soft. I mean, everybody hears, unless you don't hear very well, but, and so these things can be meaningful, right? I mean, the clip that I showed about the Bach, well, it says forte, the thunder is boom, it's coming, and also it starts with the bass and then the tenor, and also the lower instruments are starting. So these kinds of instruments versus other instruments are all carriers of meaning, which to a large extent are, you could say, universal. So it's not that everything is cultural there. The artists are exploiting also our natural ways of listening to the environments. And in painting also the choice of colors, you probably saw that in Secrets, in comparison to the original image, it's much more grayscale. There's still color, but in reality, you see it better than on the digital image. But the color space has been reduced. And again, gray is something universal in terms of experience and so on. So yeah, I think you're right, and I think AI could actually help a lot to tease out and to help us. You see, once you have this network that builds up, you can start to listen and to certainly this project has helped me to become a better viewer and a better listener.
Okay, thank you. There is another question from Ulysses. Ulysses, yes, please.
Hello, Luc. Thanks for the talk. I have a question. So, what I was missing in your talk is now how you relate all this information with symbolic interpretation, because when you go to use deep neural networks or deep learning, then how you will connect all this with the symbolic level. So all the web of symbols you were talking before, all these cognitive levels are missing. And then all this, so something is missing there. That
well, yes. No, I get your point, but this is mostly a matter of not having enough time. I would need another talk of the same length to talk about that. But to be short, what happens is that after finding patterns, recognizing patterns, there is a phase of semantic labeling, you could say. Like with open face, it's telling you that's the nose, and those are the lips. And then categories for that, like tight lips. In the painting, the lips are more tight than in the original, or the eyebrow is more thick. And so then we use these semantic labeling to ground certain categories or to come up with possible categories for the patterns that have been recognized. And then once you have that, for example, tight lips, you can consult a thesaurus, like Webster's thesaurus. You have an API and you can ask a question and it comes back with possible interpretations of what that could mean. And so in the, in this, I don't know whether I can go back here, but, or sunken eyes, thick eyebrows, S-shaped eyebrows. So these are results from semantic labeling, you could say. And then you have, for example, the sunken eyes suggests fatigue, self-admiration. I mean, this is coming out of these dictionaries. It's not my invention. And so did you see this, by the way, when I showed it?
No, not, but that's okay. We can understand it.
Okay. Yeah, I should share actually.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just do this because otherwise what I say doesn't make sense. Right here, so you see sunken eyes, and then here this is recognized by a pattern recognition, but then all these things like hollow, fatigue, self-admiration, they are coming from the thesaurus, from dictionaries, through APIs. And then once you have that, because you have ambiguity, right? Like if you say closed eyes, in fact, closed eyes can mean self-reflection, like the Buddha with the closed eyes, but it can also mean hiding secrets. So this comes out of the dictionary, actually. And then, or this moustache, which is called, by the way, a toothbrush moustache. But this is associated with military and with hierarchy. And then, of course, you get to the association with a Hitler moustache, right? And so you see how these things start to interconnect. So it is a bottom-up process with expectations top-down from the title and from the catalog. But there's a bottom-up process, and progressively it becomes more and more semantic. And links are being made and ambiguities are resolved because they connect with the topic of the other ones. Now, I should say these are exactly the processes that we are studying at the moment. This is far from, a lot of this, what I showed is automatic, but I also pushed in certain directions well, first of all, to make something that you could still see, because otherwise you get such a network of 10,000 nodes or more. So I reduced the network, but this is, I think, one of the challenges at the moment in AI is to understand this interpretation process, this process of meaning creation.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other raised hands. Right, yes. So before closing, let me mention that this beautiful afternoon and this beautiful talk, let me mention that if you are interested in these connections between artificial intelligence and arts, there will be another talk on May the 28th, so two weeks from now, given by Antonio Camuri, and this will be more, of course, on different topic, but along the same line. So please stay tuned because this will be another excited event. So until that time, please join me to thank again Luc for his very nice talk, a terrific talk, in fact, and thank you all for being with us.
Well, thank you all for spending time here and listening, and don't hesitate to send me emails with suggestions or other things. Okay.
Great. Thank you all. Bye.